are back with another episode of Lunch with a Lawyer, and today is a very special guest to me, and he's a colleague of mine, and we are going to debunk that myth that you didn't buy your law school diploma that you got.
Yeah, we should probably talk about that first. That's the first thing. I should have brought my diploma.
Yeah, so we can highlight it on the wall. But anyways, my very good friend and colleague, Minja Jusic, and Minja does mostly business and commercial law here in the United States as well as internationally. I know we'll talk a little bit about Hong Kong as well because that's where you did some business. And so let's just kind of dive in, introduce you, and we'll get into your business dealings and all that stuff. And if anybody's got any questions for us here, please don't hesitate to, post them on here. If you're, afraid to post them on here, you can always private message us. We will get them. I will also get them on my phone, and we'll try to answer them. So, Minja, originally you're from Derventa, correct?
Yeah. So I was born in Derventa in Bosnia, spent a few years there, moved to Germany, just like almost everybody else. And instead of coming to the U.S. first, went to Croatia for a couple of years. And ended up in St. Louis in 2000, actually, is when I came. So I was one of the last.
So you kind of came with the last wave.
Yeah, the last wave of people to come.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay. And then the very first question everybody gets around here. Well, what high school did you go to?
I can actually see it.
Right across
the street, Melville High School.
Melville High School, where a lot of Bosnian Americans went, right?
A lot of Bosnian Americans. I spent a year in South City. I went to Long Middle in 6th grade, and then Berkeley, and then Melville. So I've been in South County since 2001.
And you live right down the street as well.
I do live down the street. I used to live right down the street. Now I'm just over on Telegraph when I moved 6 years ago. So all super close.
We'll get to that. So Melville and then
4 years at SLU, undergrad, minor in German to, boost my GPA since I already speak German. I can say that. I can say that now.
So many of us have done that. Okay.
Major in criminal justice because originally I wanted to be either a prosecutor or a defense lawyer. I did an internship at the prosecutor's office in St. Louis County when Bob McCulloch was the prosecutor, and it wasn't for me.
Just didn't feel it.
Just didn't feel right, and luckily that was my first semester of my 2L year in law school, so it was not too hard to switch. And then I switched into commercial transactions, international and comparative law, and business law. So those are the 3 certificates.
Splendid. 2 things I want to touch upon. First of them is I also took German in undergrad to boost my GPA, as you said. As a matter of fact, I skipped a couple of those classes because all I needed was a certificate that I actually spoke the language, and then I got through with that.
Oh, that's
nice.
As
a matter of fact, I have also certified for a couple other undergrad students that, from Mizzou, from UMSL, that needed those credits. I've written letters to schools where students then got approved. They didn't have to take those classes, but they got the credits. So if anybody out there is an undergrad, speaks German, wants to speak to me, needs that certificate, look me up. And I think you can also do that. So
I could. Actually, I didn't even know about that.
Yeah. I've actually 4 or 5 people have approached me about that. And I've done it for them. After obviously speaking some German to them. Die müssen auf jeden Fall Deutsch sprechen. Verstehst du, was ich meine? So, and then when it comes to SLU law, right?
Yeah.
When did you graduate?
I graduated in 2014, which was actually kind of nice because I was the first graduating class from the new downtown building.
Nice.
So 2012, 2013, we were on the main campus, and it was definitely outdated. And then that new building is 12 stories. It was brand new, renovated, and 2014 was the first graduating class.
Splendid.
So it's kind of a history there,
History in the making, man. And so your first job, what happened?
So the first job I got, I was assistant general counsel to a backpack manufacturer, for lack of a better term, down on Locust Street in downtown. Satellite office in Dublin, Ireland, a satellite office in Erfurt, Germany, and a satellite office in Hong Kong.
Let's talk about Hong Kong.
So I started, I graduated, took the bar, passed, started that job in November. I think in May So what's that? 6 months.
Yeah.
I got shipped off to Hong Kong.
Nice.
I got a 10-year Chinese business visa because you can fly into Hong Kong without a visa. A lot of people don't know that. If you want to go to Hong Kong, you have a US passport, go. You don't need a visa. You don't need anything. If you want to go to China, you need a visa. I got a 10-year business visa. I can go in and out as I want to. I just can't stay for longer than 30 days.
Nice.
So I stay 29 days. I cross into Hong Kong, get some lunch, go back, stay another 30 days in China.
Yeah, so your path was a bit unusual because most business commercial lawyers actually end up with the big firms. Yours was right into an in-house position, and you did that traveling to Hong Kong. What does it entail? What does your job entail when it comes to that stuff?
So when it comes to that stuff, basically there was a main general counsel who worked out of Hong Kong. He was expatriate, which means he was an English person living in Hong Kong who got citizenship. He was the main lawyer, and there was 2 assistant counsels, me and another guy that actually graduated from WashU. So what we did is every country that the business would expand into or hire independent contractors or employees, we would have to make a specific employee handbook for that country. We have to research the banking laws. For example, I mean, a lot of people know that in the Middle East, for example, interest is illegal when you borrow money. So you have to take into consideration things like that. We have to do cultural research to make sure we don't offend anybody. In the US, it's business, 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 business. In China, in Hong Kong, it's relationship based. So if you spend 12, 24 hours with somebody, you're 90% of the time you're talking family. What are your values? How are you as a person? And in an hour or 2, you can wrap up deals, you know, $100,000, $250,000, $1 million deals, and just like that, as long as they like you.
Wow.
So we did those types of things. On top of that, we stayed on top of the factories, making sure that, you know, Chinese laws for factories are completely different. But we wanted to make sure that they're humane, that these people get breaks, that there's ventilation, that they're not getting sick, things like that. So I actually visited factories as well. Wow. We did walkthroughs with a group of people, had a Chinese translator. We had a driver, which was nice because traffic over there is absolutely insane. There is no traffic laws. So luckily I didn't have to drive in Hong Kong or in China, but we did things like that. And then hiring of employees, due diligence. A lot of the IP rights of the companies are owned in Ireland. A lot of the banking is done in Hong Kong. And then US is where the actual businesses are set up, which if you're not familiar with that, that's the trifecta. And it saves a lot of money in different ways. Yeah,
I can see that. And that was the international part of your practice, but you've also done work in the continental United States with businesses here in St. Louis. One of them was franchising agreements, if I remember correctly, right?
Yes. So service agreements, licensing agreements, and then the big one was the franchising agreements, because anytime I do a franchising agreement, when I meet with the client, they think, you know, oh, here's another mortgage for me because the stack of papers is about this big. But that's actually good. If you're presented with a franchise agreement and it's less than 100 pages, something's not right. So that was one of the things that I did recently, maybe about a year ago is when I first ventured into that, because I took about a year and a half to study up on it, because each state is different. So you have to first figure out what state do you want the franchising to be centrally located at.
Okay.
Do you want an LLC? Do you want a partnership? Do you want a separate company that owns just the franchises from your franchise agreements are definitely industry related.
Makes perfect sense. So you've worked with a lot of businesses here in the continental United States, and you've worked with a lot of Bosnian American businesses in our community. So what's the one thing that, if I'm a business owner and I'm listening to you right now, what's the one piece of advice? I guess here we go. Some pieces of free legal advice if you're going to give out. What's the one piece of legal advice that you would give these small, medium, big Bosnian American businesses that are functioning here that you have seen that they're kind of doing wrong, and legally speaking, they should probably do it differently?
So I'm actually going to answer that twofold.
Okay.
Number one is get an attorney before you need one. Because once you actually need an attorney, you might not have that amount of money in order to fix, depending on, if you're a small and medium-sized business. If you just hire somebody in advance, it costs a lot less to prepare and have documents to get legal advice ahead of time, where it can be a 5-10 minute conversation and you do something right, versus 25 hours of fixing things. Mm-hmm. We always know that fixing things is a lot more time consuming, more time, more cost. Other than that, specifically for Missouri businesses, LLCs is probably about 80% of what I work with. I work with S and C corporations, and I also actually work for nonprofit corporations too. But having an operating agreement and having a succession plan, those are the two biggest things. So while an operating agreement in Missouri isn't necessarily something that you file with the Secretary of State, so they're not going to check, it's always good just to have that as soon as you open your business up, because that lays the foundation of how you're going to get new people in, if you ever want to get new people in. But it also lays the foundation of what's going to happen if something were to happen to you. Does your business, every asset that you own, do you want it to go to the state of Missouri? Or would you rather have it go to your family or a nonprofit or something that you care about? So these are the types of things that are important in an operating agreement. Business succession planning is also important for nonprofits and for corporations. Bylaws and operating agreement are the same thing. So,
and you've worked with nonprofits in the past, and I saw the shout out from Luka Nedim and Minja Jusic. You've helped them, and that was just amazing work. Nonprofit businesses, there's different laws that come into play that people need to cover themselves, because with these nonprofits, what I've also seen, they don't set themselves up, and then they get all this money in, and then the question becomes, do I have to pay taxes on it now? Like, what do I do? Can I send it overseas? Can I distribute it here? Can I take some compensation for the work that I've done? And a lot of people, they really, their heart is in the right place. They want to help. Unfortunately, they're going about it the wrong way, and then they get themselves in some legal trouble, right?
Exactly. So the first step for nonprofits, you have to decide, are you a public nonprofit or a private nonprofit? There's actually two different types of nonprofits. And that's an internal thing that you do. So while you file for a nonprofit, whether it's private or public, the same way in Missouri, you have to figure out, where does your funding come from? If you're a public nonprofit, you get funding from the public. If you're a private nonprofit, it's usually a family thing where you already have money, a trust, something like that, and you funnel money into the nonprofit from those types of funds. So you don't actually go out and have fundraisers or events or anything like that. But it's definitely important to keep track of the money. And as far as paying yourself, I know a lot of people, anytime I speak to nonprofits, they bring up Susan G. Komen. That, while I don't want to say it's unattainable, it definitely, it takes a very, very long time to get to that point, because the first thing is, how is it a nonprofit, but she gets $500,000 a year? Well, when you bring in $500 million, a reasonable salary, which is what the legal standard is for a nonprofit salary, it's reasonable. There's no set percentage. There's nothing. It's just what is reasonable. We can argue about reasonability all day long. So $500,000 for Susan G. Komen is reasonable because of the amount of money that she brings in. If you're bringing in $100,000 and you're paying yourself $80,000, that's, in my opinion, not very reasonable.
So the nonprofit is actually for your profit, right?
Exactly. So rule of thumb from the very beginning until you make it big is 20% is usually what you should set aside for your salary. That's just baseline, but obviously it depends on circumstances too.
No, obviously it makes perfect sense, because I've been involved in nonprofits here in the region, and it's a lot of work. It is a full-time work, and then you've got to support your family and all that stuff. Talking about family, man.
Yeah.
So you also recently got married. Not recently, it's been a while now.
No, I haven't got married yet.
Oh,
No,
yeah, but you're
no.
with Kara. How's she doing, man?
Yeah, she's good.
She's, enjoying living with you and the...
I hope so. I don't know. I think she is.
Claire, if you're listening,
You better not be listening. You should be at work. She's teaching the kids.
Yeah, she's a teacher. Where does she teach at?
So she's at a premier charter school, which used to be called St. Louis Charter School because they were the first and original charter school in St. Louis.
Nice.
They opened, I think, in 2000, maybe 2001. It's down in the city where, most charter schools are. She was a third grade general education teacher for a few years, and now she's a physical education teacher.
Nice.
And so she teaches the kids, PE, soccer, basketball, hockey. They run outside.
That sounds like a fun job.
It is fun. Last year, I believe it was last year, maybe even this year, they introduced yoga, which is a big initiative. Yoga and meditation are making their way into trying to kind of have these kids, giving them some downtime. 8 hours is a very long time. I know in Europe it's way different. When I was in Germany, we went to school for 5 hours at the most. But she really enjoys it, and she really enjoys helping the kids. She also volunteers for Special Olympics, which is nice. She, coaches the kids and then goes and does the runs. She also has a boys running club called Let Me Run.
Wow.
Where they teach them.
She's really busy.
She's busy, yeah. They teach them, obviously, running and stamina. But because it's a boys club, they also teach them values. So it's split into half and half, kind of, 45 minutes or so on values and morals and ethics. And then 45 minutes, let's go run. Let's get some energy out, build up stamina. And then they have a big event. So she's busy.
Congratulations to you. This is just amazing work that you're doing. And
I'm proud of her.
Yeah, you got yourself a nice guy here as well. So it is all good. And so when it comes to, and I've posted your link on the announcement to your website, but if people want to get a hold of you when it comes to business law, commercial transaction, all that stuff, what's a good number for you?
A good number for me is 314-359-0606. And that's actually my cell phone. So if you're busy, you can text me. You feel free to call me. If you FaceTime me, I don't know, I might not pick up, but you're more than welcome to try. It depends on where I'm at. But it's me. So I run my practice. When you call that number, I pick up, or you get my voicemail and I'll call you back directly. So I'm a one-man operation.
Splendid. Now, is there anything that we have not covered that you would like to add here besides the business law and all the commercial transactions that we mentioned and all that?
So the biggest thing, it's actually just one thing. Along with business succession for businesses, I do wills and trusts and healthcare directives, powers of attorney, because those are also transactional things that I do that even though you have a business succession plan, you also need a will. You might need a trust. Some people do, some people don't, but everybody needs a will. And the misconception is, oh, my kids are over 18. No, it doesn't matter. It's definitely a little bit more important if your kids are under 18, if they're underage, but it doesn't matter how old your kids are. If you don't have any kids, if you have kids, if you have dogs, if you don't, animals, anything can go in a will. And probate court, which is if you don't have a will and you have to go through the probate process to prove what's yours, is time consuming, stressful, and very, very expensive. It can cost 10, 15 times more than if you just had a will the whole time. And life changes 5 years from now. All you need to do is update that will. You don't need a brand new one. So it's very easy to keep up with updates on it. So that's really the only other thing we didn't talk about. And I started doing that about a year, maybe a year and a half ago as well.
Nice. Well, if anybody's got any questions for Minja, as I said, there's a link in the announcement, and you just heard the man himself talk about his phone number and what he does. I'm going to be respectful of Minja's time, so we're going to cut this one short, and we're going to go grab our lunch right now.
Oh, yeah.
Somewhere around the corner. And so wanted to say thank you very much for being with us today. Minja, thank you for stopping by.
Thank you for having me.
This was amazing. And everybody stay safe out there, stay warm, and hopefully the summer is on its way soon. Yeah.
Oh, I think it will be.
All right. Thank you, guys. Have a good one.